combining ancient materials of wood and metal, rope, lead, and canvas, and mixing them with fire, steam, water, and wind might sound like the recipe of an alchemist. But this is exactly what one man did, and in doing so, created a masterpiece of a sailing boat. The final catalyst needed, however, was a dream.
I was driving down from Evanston one summer afternoon about 6 years ago, and I was looking out at the lake, and there was about 20 or 30 boats out there, all of them yachts, 20-footers, 40-footers. And it came into my head, and I grew up with these boats, and it came into my head that evening it would be nice to have one of those on the lake here in Chicago.
The boat that Mulcairns decided to build was a Galway hooker, so named as it was used originally for hook and line fishing. But this was more than a fishing boat.
The Galway hooker is special to Irish people because it's an original sailing boat back there, and it's been in Ireland for the last probably a couple of 100 years, and more so on the west coast of Ireland.
Along the west coast of Ireland are many inhabited islands, and back in the 1800s, no roads or bridges existed between these outposts and the mainland. That's where the hookers came in. They transported cattle, supplies, and turf, the main heating source of early Irish homes. This turf is cut from the bog. It is then dried and burnt as a fuel source. As Mulcairn says, these boats were the pickup trucks of their day.
It's the first Galway hooker ever built in America, and it's the biggest Galway hooker ever built anywhere in the world.
Barbara lies in Steve's desire to bring some of his Irish heritage and culture to the city of Chicago, which he and his family have called home for some 20 years.
I used to see it on TV, and it was just something mystical about the name and the place. I always wanted to get here, and when I did get here, I wasn't surprised. I fell in love with the place right away. The wood came from a small town in Wicklow, from Dowling Timber. It's a small town called Kiltegan, County Wicklow. And anyway, I talked to the guy in Wicklow, and he had exactly what I needed because he supplies to the hookers in Connemara. So he cut the wood, and the next thing, the foot and mouth disease came out. So he couldn't cut any more lumber until that was over. So it took me a year to get that. I waited a year for that lumber. Well, we got two 40-foot containers, one of them full with white oak, pieces that were 30 foot long, 6 inches thick, 4 to 5 feet wide. And we got another 40-foot container full of larch planks that were 30 feet, 40 feet, and they were full to the brim. I got a plan from a naval architect in Ireland, and he gives you a pretty good sketch with what they call a table of offsets. The table of offsets consists of about 40 numbers this way, parallel, and 40 numbers down this way. And once you're able to read that, then you make what they call the lofting on the floor.
This lofting on the floor is like a blueprint showing the shapes and sizes of the main frames of the boat.
Well, the design of it is special, that it's a very unique design, and there's not too many other boats in the world like it. It's got, it's very bluff on the front. It's got an apple cheek front on it, and it's got narrow in the stern then, as opposed to the yachts. The modern yacht today, it's skinny at the front and it widens up at the back. First of all, I built a model, a full-scale model out of plywood of the boat. And you cut the plywood out to the shape of the piece of wood that you like. Now, if you're off by an inch or two on the plywood, you can always get a planer and plane it off, or if you had to add a piece on, you can add a piece on. But everything you see here now is made full scale out of plywood first, before we start cutting the big oak pieces. And I did this mock-up was made, each piece of wood was put in as it is in the boat, and the ribbons were put on, and the stem and the keel are full scale as well. Most of the frames are in, except 9 or 10 frames on the back, deadwood, as they have to go in like the shape of the spokes in the wheel of a bike. They're very narrow on the inside, and then as you frame out, they flare out up to the top. And what I did was cut pieces of pine, a piece of poplar, 3/4 by 3/4, and tape them on the ribbons, and then get a lead pipe and make the shapes and go from there again. The first thing you do is you lay the keel, which is about 32 feet long. And then you lay the stern post with the transom cut out of it. And then you put up what they call the front part here is the ball. And then you put in the ribs where the mast is going to go. And then you put in the ribs where the bridge deck is going in the back beam. And then you design the transom.
After several months of hard work, most of the ribs are cut and in place, and the boat starts taking shape.
The ribs, as you put in the ribs in, they're about 30 inches apart, and they're called stations. So you put in all the stations first. When all the stations are in, you fill in between them. And as you go along, you plane it, or you push it in, or you're out. Until you have the design that you like. When all that is done, you start planking it. The first plank that goes on is the Gerber strike, and that's on the bottom of the keel and up to the first floor beam. And from then you keep planking it all the way up till you come to the bend. There is steel on the ribs because the wood wasn't wide enough after all, and the boats back home, they're not as wide, and you can overlap the frames. The first frame that goes in the keel is called the foothook, and it comes up at a slight angle. Now the next frame is called the knee, and the third one is called the tops. Now in the boats back in Ireland, they overlap the tops to the knees, and the knees down to the foothooks. But as this had such a wide beam, I wasn't able to do that. So I just put steel both sides of it, 1/4 inch steel both sides of it, to strengthen it up.
Finally, after 3 years of hard work, the St. Barbara is ready for launch.